I grew up in New York City, Manhattan. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. You know, I could get from where I lived on 122nd Street right off the East River, I could walk down to the museums. It was only a 40-block walk, which was 2 miles. Yeah, I've always lived and grown up in New York City. You know, it was more of a whim. I don't know what happened. I talked to some people that I was friends with, and I was still in high school, and I enlisted 4 days after my 18th birthday. I had a half scholarship to college for track, and I blew that. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So it's one of the reasons why I was looking to go in the Marine Corps. I went into the Marine Corps Reserve, and on June 20th, almost on the day of my graduation, the North Koreans invaded South Korea, and we were heading down to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina for our 2-week training. So when we got down there, they gave us physicals, and they brought us up to date on all our immunizations and shots and what have you. And then we spent our time getting the paperwork together, and we went to the rifle range to qualify on weapons and everything else. And then towards the end, they said, when you go home, which was on the 15th of July, they said, get all your affairs in order because you're being activated as of 1 August. We got dispersed. We didn't stay as a unit. We got put wherever they needed people. So I was, instead of going straight over to Korea, they had cleaned out all the embassies, all the naval. At that time, the Marine Corps had provided the security for every naval base, every naval air station throughout the world, plus the embassies. So they had a lot of people invested in that. And they cleaned those people out and sent them directly to Korea. And so we had a backfill. So that I got lucky, you know, and we went up to Quonset Point Naval Air Station right outside of Providence. In fact, right across the bay from Newport. And so I was there from about September until June. The following June, I re-enlisted and went into the regular Marine Corps. And 3 days after I re-enlisted, my orders were cut for Korea. They were desperate, I guess. You know, they needed bodies. You know, yeah. So me and my friend, we both re-enlisted on the same day. And so we went over to Korea. We were there for a year, and I went to Camp Pendleton, had advanced infantry training, and then we shipped out. And we went over by boat, by vessels, Navy TAC transports we used. It took us 21 days. So it was a long trip. Right after we came off the ships, they pulled us over and they said, you, and you, get in that truck. You, and you, get in another truck. They call your names and check you off. And then you went where? You know, and then you find it out. Oh, I'm going to 1st Marines. Someone's going to 5th Marines. Someone's going to Ordnance. Someone's going into tanks. Someone's going to motor transport. So it was just divvied up throughout the whole division. I heard about the cold. I didn't expect to see how really cold it was. I mean, we were talking 30 degrees below zero. Wow. You know, and 35, and we were living outdoors. Okay, so we had, now at this point in time, the truce talks had begun, and they stabilized what they call the DMZ, the Demilitarized Zone, and that was there. And they were, in the beginning, everybody was hoping that the talks would be successful, and that you know, we'd be home soon, that the war be terminated. You know, we may end up staying there for a period of time and then get back. but it didn't turn out to be the case. We were on a mountain that was 3,000 feet, and the North Koreans in the beginning were about a half a mile away on their side, and we'd send out patrols, every so often shoot at each other, you start a firefight, but that was basically it. It was just active patrolling, and because they didn't want to upset anything that was going on, but then that dragged on. So then in February of '51, the division was told to move from the East Coast to the West Coast to protect the city of Seoul. City of Seoul was only 35 miles south of the DMZ at that point. So, and that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
So Seoul had changed hands about 3 times, in that first year. And then we were guarding the Panmunjom Road, and our job was to do, whoever was the closest to it was supposed to go in and rescue the truce talk people and bring them down the road. Now that was an old fire zone, that road, for both sides. So there's some funny things happened on that, and that was our job. But then, as it got towards the summer, it became more active patrolling, and then we started having a lot of fights to take over the outposts. So they called it the outpost war at that time. From there until the end of the war, there's a lot. You heard of Pork Chop Hill, you heard of Bunker Hill, the Hook, all these places. I mean, there was some savage fighting going on, because in that last year, from about July, August of '51 until the war was, 52, till the war was over, we had more casualties than they did the first part. The hill I was on was called Bunker Hill. We had a lot of casualties on some of these hills. We would go up, take the hill, or get it taken back from us, so we were just going back and forth. And we got hit. We had a company on one hill, and we got hit by better than a battalion of Chinese. And so we got lucky. We had a lot of support, a lot of air support, a lot of artillery support, and so we held them off. And but it was busy time, and that lasted for a month and a half. And other units were having the same things. You learn on the go. So what you relied on is the people that were there before you to help you get over the hump, because it's a different experience. You got to learn the tricks of surviving in that cold weather. And in the summertime, it was just the opposite. It was winter and summer. That's all that was over in Korea. Winter would go down to -30. Winds would blow pretty fierce, especially when you went up to the central part of the country. And in the summertime, it would go over 100 degrees. And the southern tip of it is like Florida. It's tropical. Bunkers that get flooded, fighting holes that get flooded, and you're in them. Or you learn how to live them. Well, first off, whatever you had, you carried. Okay, so it was the biggest, in the wintertime, it was critical. You had a sleeping bag that was in good shape. Okay, clothing. Now the first year, they had what they called shoe packs. The biggest problem they had the first year, especially up north in Chosin, is frostbite. And they developed a boot, what we used to call a Mickey Mouse boot, but it was a thermal boot. And instead of getting frozen feet, you could end up getting trench foot, because you sweated so much in the boot that you still had to change your socks at least twice a day. And when you took off the boot, you just poured out water, just poured right out of the boot. And you learned all the tricks of staying warm. Lots of times you didn't have any stove. When you're on the line, there's basically no real stoves, because smoke would give position away and all that kind of stuff. So I remember in the summer of '52, we went to shower points. Now, for us to go to a shower point, there was no truck to get you there. Okay, So you had to come down whatever hill you were on, and then you had to walk 2 ridge lines back to go to a shower point. So you took your shower. What they did is, first of all, they took all the clothing you had on your body, and real quick they surveyed it and they burned most of it. It was that bad. Okay, and you took a shower and they gave you replacement clothing. Okay, you could go in as a PFC and come out a master sergeant because the stripes were stenciled on in those days. So you go in a master sergeant, come out a private. They didn't mind that because the more stuff you have on your arm and they can spot that, that's the guy they're going after. Summertime, the worst thing I ever seen happen is we had a kid in our platoon who was about 6'4", real physical shape kid. Healthy as a healthy. One day he came down, he says, I don't feel good. So they got sent to the corpsman. The corpsman sent them to medical, what we called Easy Med. It's like a MASH unit, except that we didn't 5077. We had Abel, Baker, Charlie, Dog, Easy Med. Those were the way we separated 5 medical battalions. And 3 days later, he was dead.
Wow.
I mean, and we all wondered, what was that? You know, he wasn't wounded. It turned out he got hemorrhagic fever. And that is bad. And here it is in the middle of the heat that we had to take we had to cover up everywhere. We couldn't wear, we had to have our jackets, our fatigue, we used to call them dungarees, or utilities. Fatigues are for the Army. But we had to button them all the way up, button the cuffs, have our trousers, dungarees into our boots, but we were still using leggings.
Oh, yeah.
You could always tell a Marine that because they had yellow legs. You know, we had the canvas, but we didn't have the jump boots like the Army did, or the type of boot they had. So you had to be completely buttoned up, and because they didn't know what was causing it. So that was a trying day. Not a day. That lasted a few weeks. Well, I had a guy go crazy on me. He and I were sharing a fighting hole, and he just said, I can't take it anymore. And he started doing some funny things, and I told the guys in the next hole next to me, he says, I need help. This guy is going crazy here. So they took him away and never saw him again. So, but, you know, that was a lot of casualties. Marine Corps birthday is a big deal throughout the world. Every installation, every Marine base, every embassy has a birthday ball, a birthday party to celebrate November 10th. And on the lines, the same thing happened. They would bring up, it was almost like a Thanksgiving dinner. You know, they really did it up around, and they had the birthday cake. Now, in the Marine Corps, you cut the cake with a sword. You have a ceremony where you cut the cake, and you either have a special guest, but over there you got the oldest Marine in the unit, and he would get the first piece of cake. And then in turn they would cut a second piece of cake, and they would hand it to the youngest Marine. It's the passing of the tradition.
Yeah.
So every year that happens. Coming home, we got into Treasure Island, which is in San Francisco, and we came underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was so foggy we couldn't even see it.
Wow.
Okay? And the first thing we saw was Alcatraz Island, which was a federal prison at the time, in the middle of the bay. So we landed, they got all our files, our records, and they said, here's $180, don't come back for 3 days. You know, we were on liberty for 3 days, and that was a lot of money in those days. This is 1952. And so we did that, and they gave us a whole new issue of clothing, then we got sent home, and then we got sent to our next duty station after some leave, and then we just continue on from there as to what we were doing. So I stayed in the infantry battalions, basically, and I got out in 1954. The thing that hit me the most coming home is that I went back to my neighborhood, and I ran into guys I grew up with, and they came into me, to me, and I was in uniform at the time, and they said, "Hey, George, where have you been? I haven't seen you in a long time." I said, "I just spent going and coming. It was like 14 and a half months since I, going and coming back from Korea. I was in Korea for a year." Because I didn't even know you were gone. And this guy I used to see every day.
Wow.
So that was kind of typical.
Yeah.
And so it was really a forgotten war. Came back and I went to school. I went back to school under the GI Bill, and I ended up going into something completely different from what I wanted. I was interested in history, and I wanted to become a track coach, and so I was going to take a phys ed with a history minor. And then after 4 years, I said, "I'm not so sure I want to do that." And I ended up going to a technical school, and I ended up working for Bell Laboratories, which is the AT&T's R&D at the day. I'd be happy if everybody had at least a year's military training, because a lot of these kids, they don't have a clue what's going on. They have no discipline for the most part. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them have no discipline. They don't have any clue as to what's happened. All the people that were served in the military. And around the world, a lot of that stuff is required, to put some time in the military. It gives you a time to grow up. It's really what it boils down to. So my kids, I had 3 or 4 of my children served in the military. My son served in the Marines for 24 years. My son was a naval officer for 10 years, and my daughter was in the Navy. Since that time to now, I went on an honor flight in May. I don't know if you know about the honor flights. That was a highlight. That was awesome, that trip. I mean, they packed so much in one day, but let me tell you, that was really something. We got flown up. We were fed all day long. We had to go in wheelchairs. That was the criteria. You had to be in a wheelchair, and you had a guardian that pushed you all over the place. And we visited 5 memorials: World War II, Air Force, the Korean War Memorial, the Vietnam. Oh, and I almost forgot, the Tomb of the Unknown. And they had special events for us while we were there, okay? And we got, the thing that was kind of neat about it, because we were traveling all over Washington, D.C., is that our unit, the Collier County on a flight, we had a police escort for 3 buses. We had over 150 people on that flight. 66 veterans, 66 guardians, and the staff. That made up for all the years they didn't remember.